Our legislature acts as a school board, if you will, deciding how much money our local school districts get and how much authority and policy, what policy can be set forth in our local school district.
All right, on this episode, we will examine the North Dakota Department of Public Instruction and its role in state government. To help provide that information, I'm happy to be visiting with Ms. Kirsten Baesler, the elected state superintendent of schools for North Dakota, the Department of Public Instruction. Ms. Baesler has served as the state superintendent since her election in 2012, so thank you very much for taking time today. And I was wondering if we could just start with a little bit of a biography of yourself.
Sure. It's an honor to be with you. Thank you so much, and thank you for this work that you're doing to assist our students in the state. So I am a North Dakota third generation daughter of two individuals that raised seven of us. I'm the youngest of seven children. Grew up in small town, southwestern North Dakota, a small community called Flasher, a student of the Flasher public school system. And my mother and father raised us with the idea of servant leadership in mind before it was even a word. My father was a Korean War veteran and came back and married my mother, who he'd been engaged to before he left, and he was a platoon sergeant, so he was boots on the ground in the Korean foothills, and came back and had seven of us, had seven kids, and my parents raised all seven of us to serve God, family, and country. And so with that mindset, grew up with that idea in mind, and we were raised with the understanding that it wasn't a matter of if we served, it was a responsibility of all of us to find out how we could best serve in that way. And so with that, I became a teacher's aide, an elementary school teacher, a library school media specialist, assistant vice principal at elementary schools here in Bismarck, our state's largest school system. Was a Mandan school board member for 9 years and served as president of that board for 7 of those 9 years. And then in 2012, early 2012, I got a call from several individuals that were already in state government and said that they had been watching my career, watching the work that I had done for students across the state for the previous decade and a half, and wondered if I might want to run for the state superintendent of schools. And so I went to my family, my father, of course. My mother had already passed away, but my father and my 3 sons, and asked their opinion, and they said, yes, I think you should probably consider that. So that was the decision we made in 2012, and here we are in 2024, and feeling that we've accomplished some really good work, but there's still lots to do.
Sure. So as a candidate, when you're running for office, just for those who might not know, are you allowed to run under a political party?
We are not. This position, particularly the superintendent of public instruction, is not allowed to run on any political party. Interestingly enough, when the North Dakota and South Dakota became states and broke away from the Dakota Territory and became a state, it was added on our North Dakota Constitution that this would be an elected office. And so it is in our state constitution that the state superintendent is an elected office. But it wasn't until the early 20th century, the early 1900s, that the North Dakota legislature declared at that point in time that the state superintendent could not run as a political party. And so that it wasn't part of our North Dakota Constitution, but our North Dakota legislature did decide in the early 1900s that it could not be politically affiliated. In our North Dakota State's Constitution, it's important to note that Article 2 of the state constitution declares that the state superintendent only has the authority specifically prescribed to it by the North Dakota legislature. So there is that nice working relationship that this elected office has with our North Dakota legislative body.
All right. So in your elected role, what is your role in state government in that regard then?
So maybe expounding on that a little bit. Everything that becomes the role of the state superintendent is specifically laid out in North Dakota Century Code. Our legislature acts as a school board, if you will, deciding how much money our local school districts get and how much authority and what policy can be set forth in our local school districts. And it's up to the state superintendent to deliver that appropriated funding and to ensure that all state and federal policy is implemented as our state legislature and our federal Congress determine is suitable for K-12 public school districts. So over the course of the years, some major authority that is laid out, it's specifically described in North Dakota Century Code under the supervision and the authority of the state superintendent. Some big ones are, of course, to deliver out the appropriated funding, to set the content standards, and so to ensure that in the areas of science, social studies, mathematics, reading and writing, that a certain set of uniform standards are delivered in each and every one of our school districts. And so we don't go into prescribing specific materials or resources, what we call curriculum in education, but it is the state's responsibility. The legislature has said the state superintendent must set the base level standards of what every student should know and be able to do in each of those subject content areas.
And how do you go about doing that? Who are the people who help write those standards?
That's a great question. So the process that we've adopted, and again, we've put this process together, and then the legislature again has to approve that process through an administrative rules process. And so the process that we use is we actually engage the actual teachers themselves. And so when it's time to update the mathematics standards, we bring together mathematics teachers, elementary, middle, high school math teachers, along with our higher ed math teachers, and we have them review the standards that are currently in place for North Dakota. We have them look at other state standards to compare whether we are on par with what other states are doing. We have them look at national organizations, mathematical organizations, to determine whether or not they are aligned, whether we should make some changes. And so the North Dakota teachers do that first review. And that's the same for any subject area. When it's time to review science standards, we bring together our science standards. Social studies teachers, we bring together social studies. We do Phi Ed, we do English language arts, which is reading and writing. We do all sorts of standards, and that's all on our website. And they're on a cyclical process, a cycle where they are reviewed every 5 to 7 years to make sure that they are current. But those teachers, those subject area teachers, come together and they make their first draft of updates and any changes. And then we put that out for public comment and public review. We send it out to all of the teachers in the state of North Dakota for their input. We advertise it in all of our state's newspapers, so public comment can contribute and provide their advice and consult. And then those teachers come back together, they review those recommendations, that advice, that guidance. They make adjustments and drafts, adjustments to the drafts, and then they put it out for public comment again. And then the third and final step is that we then bring in together industry experts. And so engineers, people, for mathematics, continuing with that example, engineers use mathematics highly. There are other areas of industry and business that use mathematics integrally in their work. And so we bring those industry experts in, as well as any citizen that wants to be part of our review committee, just a public review committee. And we formally sit down with them because sometimes we've recognized that sometimes educators look at subject area content through a different lens and through the academic lens, and sometimes we may be missing what some would call a common sense lens or a business and industry lens, or sometimes educators are unaware of some certain bias that might be brought into, for instance, science standards as it relates to fossil fuels. And so we don't want to insulate ourselves from just purely creating academic standards, because we know the understanding and the influence that subject content area standards can have in the instruction from kindergarten through 12th grade. So we actually added that extra layer of review in the 2017-18 cycle. I felt that it was important. I felt that there was an opportunity that maybe some bias was coming in because educators weren't always attuned to some of that other conversation. And so we added that extra layer of review by industry experts and just, community constituents. The legislature approved of that change that I made, and so we've added that review. And so once that advice and in that perspective, that lens has been added, then our teachers make their final recommendations and they bring that to the state superintendent, and the state superintendent has the final authority to adopt those new standards. So that's the process that we use.
Sure. So those members of public do they contact the office and say, I would love to be involved, or does the office reach out and say, we would like for you to come in and look at this?
So, no, it's actually on a voluntary basis. We advertise it. We advertise it both on our website. We reach out to the newspapers, to the radio stations. We do as much as we can to inform the public that we're looking for the insight. There have been several industries that have reached out to us in the off cycle and said, the next time that these standards are up for review, could you let us know? Because we would like to provide some reviewers to this committee. And so we keep that running list. And if they have reached out to us and said that they'd like to be notified, we always reach out to them and give them a special notice that this opportunity is there for them.
Sure. So obviously you're not doing this all by yourself.
No.
How big is the office?
The office is what I describe as a small but mighty team of 82 state employees. We are the smallest state education agency in the nation.
Oh, wow.
We have reduced our size. Interestingly, when I took office, we were at 101 state employees, but through the course of retirements and attrition, we've taken a look. Each time someone has left or retired, we've taken a look at that position, and we have analyzed whether or not it could be absorbed by other positions, whether it was a good fit for it to maybe partner with other portfolios so we could become more efficient and more effective. Sometimes it's not the best or most effective or efficient way to deliver customer service if there's multiple people that are customers that our community has to deal with, if it's a similar or related question or effort. And so we've been able to reduce from 101 to 82. I would say that we are operating as lean as we could possibly operate. So in the same time that we've reduced the number of employees by about 20 to 25%, our customer service and satisfaction has increased, and our employee satisfaction and engagement has increased as well. So we're a small but mighty team that are working full throttle every day. I'm proud to say that we had the highest employee satisfaction and engagement score on the 2023 Gallup poll that the state did. So we are, as I said, a very hardworking but a very engaged team. We're a good team of NDDPI family.
That's great. What is your role or relationship with the legislature? You'd mentioned changes and whatnot. So how do you visit with the legislature and encourage them to amend something?
Yes, and so we really pride ourselves in the growing credibility and accountability that we have had with our legislature since I took office. I will be frank and say that when I took office, I don't know that there was a real trusting relationship between the state agency and our lawmakers. They were a little suspicious, and I don't know if that was if that's the way that they viewed all agencies, but I certainly felt that when I took my office in 2013, and so thus began a multi-year effort to ensure that we built a credible, trusting relationship. And so that's one of our number one priorities as this small but mighty team. I encourage and ask that all of our team members, all of our teammates make themselves available, introduce themselves to not only our veteran lawmakers, but our newly elected lawmakers, those that are even running for office, reaching out to candidates to introduce ourselves, because we view ourselves as a resource for our lawmakers. They make the law, and our agency is responsible and tasked with the responsibility of implementing the law. So it behooves us to ensure that our lawmakers have the best information available to them. So when they are asked to vote on any policy or appropriation, whether it be in committee or on the floor, that they have the best information so they can make the best decision as they are asked to vote red or green on every issue that comes before them. And so that relationship has grown stronger and stronger in the last 8 years. Not only do we provide that information to our lawmakers during the legislative session, the 80 days every biennium, but even during the interim committees. We have put together a legislative retreat that will be occurring next month in Bismarck, where we invite, it's a cross-partisan, I don't even say bipartisan or nonpartisan, but it's cross-partisan effort to bring our legislators together and provide them information from third-party resource experts on areas that are of importance to them, that our lawmakers have decided are important. Workforce, high school to career bridges, early childhood education investments, educational choice opportunities. Not our job to really lobby, but really our job to provide them the unbiased information that our lawmakers need to make good informed decisions. And every year, the number of lawmakers that come to our 9th, 10th, and 11th floors to ask our individual team members information on whether it's going to be the science of reading or whether it would be special education opportunities or issues or per pupil payments or mill levy. How does the impact of our funding formula for schools impact property tax mill levies? We are seeing just a growing number of lawmakers that are continuously, increasingly comfortable with knowing who our team is and reaching out and asking for information.
Great. You had mentioned earlier about allocating funding and so forth.
Yes.
So is there a way that that money, is there an accountability process, or is it just the duty of the office just to make sure it gets out there, and from there it just kind of goes?
So there is more accountability with the federal funding. So each biennium, the state of North Dakota invests and appropriates or approves about $2.5 billion of funding that is delivered out to our school districts. So of that $2.5 billion, 98% is delivered directly out to our local school boards to decide how to spend. Okay. And so of that 98%, 7% is federal funding, and federal funding has a much higher level of accountability. We are tasked by the federal government with the approval of our state legislature to have a deeper degree of monitoring. Whether it be desk monitoring or in-person monitoring. But the vast majority, the 91% that is comprised of state funding, that is the legislature has determined that the local accountability with the local school board elections has been to the degree that they want it. Our legislature has long held local control in a high regard, and they continue to do so.
Sure. So do local school boards and so forth, think back to the standards, do they reach out to your office for assistance? Particularly we have so many rural and small schools.
Right. There are 168 school districts in the state, thus there are 168 school boards with on average 5 to 9 members, right? So some have 5, some have 9, so on average 7 members. And so you do that math. There's a lot of individual school board members out there. We work, they don't generally reach out to our office. They generally reach out to the North Dakota School Boards Association. And so we have, again, in the last 12 years, nurtured that relationship to a high degree. I'm really proud of an effort that we established in 2000. We began investigating the idea in 2019. We used some COVID funding to establish this program called the North Dakota Be Legendary School Board Training. And the legislature saw such a great impact of the impact of that training that it had on the local school districts and school board members that had received that training, that in the 2023 legislative session, they agreed to continue to fund that through my office's budget. So what that North Dakota Be Legendary School Board Training consists of is it goes out and it is a partnership with our School Boards Association and individual coaches, school board coaches, go out to those local communities. We don't require them to come to Bismarck. The coaches go to them. And there's a 2-day mindset training that helps our school board members understand the ability, their impact that they have on their ability to improve student outcomes. And it helps our school board members understand that how they spend their money and how they, and the policies that they make do have a direct impact on student academic achievement. And so I'm really proud to say it was a pilot, and it was all voluntary, but as of this month, June of 2024, over 30% of our school boards have voluntarily participated in this training. And I just received note yesterday that there was one school board that previously their reading achievement for their students was at 5%. And after just 1 year of them setting student outcome goals, and the school board meetings every 2 weeks, having an update on how their students are improving in reading and the interventions and the strategies that were being used to intervene in reading, they went from 5% to 38% in 1 year. And that just shows the power of when you have leaders at the very top talking about student academic outcomes at their board meetings, that sends a signal to teachers in every classroom and parents of every family that if it matters to the highest leaders in our school district, it matters to everybody in the system. And so we will continue to support our school board members in that way. The legislature has given us the authority and the funding to continue to do that. So our goal is to ensure that our school board members know that the partnership that exists between the Department of Public Instruction and their association, our School Boards Association, is strong and alive and willing and able and ready to help them focus on student academic outcomes.
That's great. That's a huge growth.
Yes, huge.
So you kind of alluded to this a little bit with the testing and so forth. What is the department's role in assessing that student learning and academic performance, and what's the benefit of doing that?
Yes. It is one of the roles and responsibilities, the authority that the legislature has given the state superintendent. They have said that the state superintendent is indeed responsible for ensuring that there is a standard assessment that is given to all students, 3rd grade through 8th grade, and once in high school. And our high school exam takes place the spring of their sophomore year, their 10th grade year. And so every year, these students are assessed in reading, writing, and mathematics, and in 4th, 8th, and 10th grade in science. And so those are the areas that are assessed, and it is my responsibility to provide the accounting and the accountability of the results of that assessment to not only our state legislature, but to the public. And so previously, the public reporting was done through media reports, through a federal, through an annual report that was given once. In 2015, I asked the legislature for authority to put a public dashboard together. So instead of just a once annual report, and if a family member or a citizen taxpayer missed that, they missed it. We have now an online public dashboard where at any point in time, any citizen, any family member, any individual can go to our public online dashboard and find out exactly how a school district is doing and how that school district is compared to the state average. And in fact, even deeper, how any school building within that school district is doing and how that compares to the state. I think one thing of importance to note, at that same time, the teachers that were putting together the science standards and the teachers that were putting together what we call cut scores to determine whether or not a student gets a designation of proficient or advanced or partially proficient, our teachers decided that we were not being as honest with our students and our families as we should be. And so they had said that previously our cut scores had been set pretty low. And well, that made people feel good, and other states are still continuing to do this. Some states are claiming that 90% of our students are reading on grade level. They're proficient. 87% of our 8th graders are proficient in mathematics. Makes everybody feel good. But when you align that to what we call the NAEP test, the National Assessment of Education Progress, which is called, most call it the nation's report card. When you would align a state test to that NAEP test, what we found, and other states are finding, and whether they choose to correct it or not, is that while they were doing really great and telling their students that they were doing really great on the state assessment, when it came to the NAEP assessment, they weren't. So our goal in the 2015, 2017 circa was to have ours closely aligned. And so we made that alignment, we made that shift because our teachers decided that they knew that our students could perform at that level. Our students had it in them, and our teachers had what it took to get those students there. And so we increased our cut scores, and little by little, year after year, our students are meeting, more of our students are meeting proficiency in our state. We took a bit of a hit during COVID-19.
Sure.
The gains that we were making took a little bit of hit, but we are climbing our way back.
Sure. And so North Dakota does have a significant or growing population of Native American students. How does DPI help those students and those communities?
That's another thing that I'm very, very proud of. We have made it a concerted and significant effort of ours to ensure that our Native American students are receiving the supports and services that they need. When I first took office in 2012, I looked at the data and I found that while North Dakota had a really high graduation rate, overall, we sit about 90% of our students are graduating every year. I looked at our Native American graduation rate, and it was in the low 50s. It was about 52%. And digging more deeply into that, we as a team recognized that we weren't just talking about our schools that were on our tribal lands or our Bureau of Indian Education schools. These were all of our students in all of our schools. So Native American students that were going to Mandan, to Bismarck, to Grand Forks, to Wahpeton, Devil's Lake, Minot, Jamestown, they were graduating at about that average rate of 52%. So that gave us clear indication that what we were doing systemically or systematically in the state was not serving the needs of our students. And so we needed to take a look at that. And so in 2013, we began we formed a working group, and we established the Office of Native American or Indian Education and Multicultural Office to ensure that we were deeply focused, because this was an economic issue. When we only have 780,000 people in our state as a whole, and we graduate about 10 to 12,000 students every year, Native American students make up anywhere from 10 to 12% of our student population. We need every one of our North Dakota citizens graduating so they can be part of the North Dakota economy. When you have 10 to 12% of your population not graduating at 50% of the rate, that is an economic issue that is impacting our entire state. And so not only did we pursue that effort because it's the right thing to do to ensure that every student has a high school diploma to ensure that they can pursue their best life after high school, we needed to do that for all of North Dakota's economy and all of North Dakota's citizens. And so we put together the essential understandings, and we developed we developed some resources for our school districts to use. And we interviewed the elders of each of the 5 tribes that we share our borders with. And we had our teachers come together and create lesson plans in mathematics, reading and writing, Phi-Ed, music, science, that integrated the essential understandings of our Native American tribes. And so and we provided professional development for our teachers, for all of our teachers that were teaching Native American students. What we saw when we had this concerted effort, within the first year that we deployed this and provided this support, our Native American graduation rate went from 52% to 78% within the first 3 years of this program. right before the pandemic, our Native American graduation rate was right at 85%. And so again, our Native American students took a hit. They took a deeper, more impactful hit because those wraparound services weren't available to them, the supports that we saw had made a difference. But again, the last 2 years, when our Native American students were able to get back into the schools surrounded by those caring teachers that were provided these resources that helped them, our Native American students are recovering at a faster rate than the population as a whole. So again, thank you for asking that question about how we are addressing that need, and I have an amazing team of individuals at the within our our Native Indian education and multicultural education. Special kudos to Lucy Fredericks, who has been leading that with me for the last 12 and a half years. So she's a great leader.
All right, last couple of questions. What efforts does the department undertake to ensure students are prepared for post-secondary education or the workforce, which seems to be a little bit more of the push nowadays?
So another significant change that we made in 2015 is, again, in our effort to be more transparent and ensure that not only our students but also the families of our students knew exactly where they were at. We had a really high graduation rate, as I said, 90%, and for so many years, too many years, we stopped there and we celebrated that 90% graduation rate. But as you know, so many of our students were needing to take remedial courses their first year of college and costing our families more money in college credit and college fees while they were paying for a college course but not getting any college transcripted course credits for it. And additionally, they were leaving, if they did choose not to pursue college, they were leaving high school but didn't really have any world skills or job skills. And so we said, that's not enough. So in 2015, we revamped our entire measurement of accountability, and we began measuring what we called choice ready. And so in 2015, we began working on it. 2016, we adopted the choice ready framework, and it's an accountability framework that says our students who graduate must be deemed choice ready in order for that high school to get its accountability points for graduation. And to graduate choice ready means that you are graduating with interpersonal skills, what we call the essential skills, soft skills of a plethora of diverse experiences. But then you also must meet the criteria in at least 2 of these 3 categories: college ready, workforce ready, or military ready. It's not enough for a student to just say, well, I'm going to go to college. I don't care about all those other skills, because all of us know somebody that says, I'm going to go to college. I'm going to go to UND. I'm going to go to NDSU. And they get there and they're like, oh, I thought I wanted to be an engineer and I really don't. That's not for me. We also have those students that are saying, I'm never going to go to college. I'm just going to go to work right away. And they go to work for a couple of years and they think, oh, I think I'm capable or I want more than this. So our responsibility is to make sure that those students are graduating ready in at least 2 of the 3. Of course, we'd like them to graduate ready in all 3 of those, but in order for the high school to get accountability points, they have to be graduating in at least 2 of the 3. In 2015, when we took our baseline, 2016, graduating class of 2016, when we got our baseline, we learned that of our students graduating from high school, those that actually got that North Dakota diploma and thought it meant something, only 23% of those graduates were deemed ready in 2 of those 3 areas. We thought, that's no wonder there's an honesty gap. No wonder there's a little bit of a false sense of what does that North Dakota diploma really mean. But when we saw, I think we're really good at that in North Dakota. We we're not afraid of the hard facts. We're not afraid of the truth. We found the truth and we said, okay, we can do much better than that. And so the department established programs and provided grant funding and training for our high schools to say, what can you do? You need to reach out to those freshmen and say, this is what you need to do to graduate choice ready, because it matters to you and it matters to the grading and the accountability of our high school. And so intervening a little earlier, having conversations with the student and the family. So it's that three-legged stool that is so important: school, student, and family. And having those conversations. Through that effort last year, 68% of our students getting that North Dakota high school diploma were choice ready. So we'll continue to improve that. We want, of course, 100% of our students graduating and 100% of our students graduating choice ready. So that's what we're doing. And I that's the framework. But through that is so many partnerships that have been developed. Partnerships are so important to this office, to this agency. We partner with our workforce, our commerce department. We partner with CTE. We partner with our higher ed. We partner with our tribal colleges. We partner with so many the business, the chamber. Anybody that is willing to help us reach our young people at an earlier age. We finally helped our business and industry community understand that it's too late to talk to freshmen in high school, that they not only have to get into middle schools, but ideally, if they could start talking to our third graders about what career opportunities are out there, our third graders are really looking to say, I didn't even know that there was a payload operator. I like to do that. So what do I need to do in middle school and high school to get ready for that? So we partner with anybody and everybody out there that wants to partner with us.
Great. Well, the last question is always the same, being where this is civics and introducing people to the department. So if DPI disappeared from state government, what is the impact on the people in the state of North Dakota?
The impact would be the most severe for our next generation. I often describe our agency as the agency that is nurturing the next generation. They are investing fertilizer and watering and providing sunlight for a tree that they will never sit in the shade of. So if this agency went away, we would still have successful pockets of education in the state, but what this agency does first and foremost is ensures that regardless of your parents' occupation, regardless of the zip code that a child was born into, that there is ample opportunity for access to thrive and pursue your dreams, to be a North Dakota citizen, because that is the reason that public education exists. It doesn't exist to create college graduates, because when it first was incepted, there wasn't really a higher ed system. It really didn't exist to be a workforce provider, because at that point in time, our workforce was agrarian, and that's what everyone did. The reason our education system exists is to educate the next generation of civic leaders.
All right. Well, I do want to thank you very much for your time to help listeners understand the role of North Dakota Department of Public Instruction that it plays in state government and the work that you and your staff do in the state. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian.
And thank you, listeners, for spending some time with the 701 Civics podcast. Be sure to give a thumbs up for today's podcast and subscribe to catch the latest episode of the 701 Civics podcast as we continue together to learn about North Dakota state government.